Alex Paeta wins. That solidifies him as, some would say, the GOAT. Crazy conversation that we're having, but sure, right? Ankalaev, given that he's not the most popular guy, if he wins, AJ, would this not set it up to say, oh, but you beat Paeta and he can't wrestle, so obviously we all knew, like something of that nature. Do you anticipate a narrative like that happening?
Especially if he's able to.
All right, man, let's be real. Alex Paeta, we've been saying it forever since he got in there. Wait till he fights a wrestler, then we can really understand, is he deserving of being on that pedestal that so many people are putting him on? Magomed Ankalaev, he's the guy, the dark horse I've been talking about for who knows how long. If you have been supporting this channel for a while, you know we have been high on Magomed Ankalaev, and you should have already put a future bet on him being a champion at some point. 2024, I think that's the year. But some would say this is the real stiff test. This is the real official test of Paeta's UFC career. Do you agree, or does the merit of what he has done thus far in the sport, does it hold up on its own?
Yeah, he has fought wrestlers in the past, but nobody's able to actually put him in those deep waters where we need to see, is Alex Paeta the real deal championship material? This is the test that's going to be here. And like you said, Derick, you've been calling the dark horse of the division, the guy that's going to be able to take the throne. Now's the opportunity for him to be able to prove it.
Let's be real, Ankalaev, man, not a lot of hype on him, right? A lot of people think of him as the boring fighter that if he wins, what is the sport turned into? But I think what it is really is that you have a very polarizing figure. You have a, I'm not going to go as far to say as a Conor McGregor-esque figure, but you have a guy right now who is really good for the sport, you have to admit, from like an entertainment standpoint in terms of just like manning up, striking, doing that, fantastic. But that's not what this sport is about. This is mixed martial arts, and we want to see the best of all the disciplines. Now, to go back to your original point, Alex Paeta has given up some takedowns. He's actually been taken down in 5 of the 10 fights that he's had thus far. Now, you have to like put context on it, right? Nobody's held him down though. That's the difference. It's easy to get him down, but can you hold the man down? That's something that we're going to find out. But of course, before we jump into that, AJ, we need to talk about last week, an interesting week, UFC Fight Night 253, and Manel Kape, man, story of the show. Eye pokes, we talk about it, fingers extended. Manel Kape put his hands out and he grazed him, and then he finished it with a knockout. Give us your take on the fight.
Absolutely, Derick. It seemed like, especially in the beginning, the hand speed, the pressure, the power that Kape had was just a little too much for Magomed, and started getting on the bike, started traveling a little bit. And what are you going to do when somebody's running away from you, try to grab them? That leads to some, fingers to the eyes, and unfortunately it happens, but it is the game that everybody plays, so it's good to see Kape get his win.
Yeah, just in case he said it himself, man, it's a part of the game. You can't avoid eye pokes, but you have to admit, even though we rooted for Kape, even though that was the one of 3 consensus picks that we had that actually won on the night, you don't feel good about a knockout victory after an eye poke. It's always going to get overlooked, though. Let's talk about the actual numbers, man. 1 and 2 on the consensus pick, not our finest night, one of our worst performances. But it was interesting to see that the heaviest favorite on the card, the guy that everybody thought was going to destroy, Sam Patterson, Danny Barlow, man, he gets stiffed. He gets knocked out by the submission artist. Just talk to us about that.
Yeah, live by the KO, die by the KO is Barlow all day long, and he got caught, couldn't recover. Sam Patterson, I will say, he looked nice, especially in the exchanges, and once he saw he hurt Barlow, he was all over him, wasn't giving him any space to breathe.
Patterson ate a couple too, man. So I think once he felt it and said, oh, I'm still here, all right, let's get it, man. And sometimes just because you're a really good hammer does not mean you will be a really good nail. So shout out to Sam Patterson. People, show me your Sam Patterson by KO tickets. I want to see them. All right, man. Julian Marquez, he was our other consensus pick that didn't hit. Cody Brundage, not a guy you particularly always want to bet on, but he's streaky. That's what makes it difficult. AJ, just really quickly, this is really the only other controversial thing that we had going on. Weird ref stoppage in the middle of chaos that led to maybe a momentum swing. I'm not going to say it's even as deep as that. I just think that Marquez ended up getting the short end of the stick 2 fights in a row. What do you take on it?
Yeah, I can see where a lot of people are thinking that, Derick, and personally the way I saw the fight play out, once Brundage landed that powerful overhand right, that really shook Marquez. He got him rocked. It was all downhill from there. He lost some momentum. Everything just kind of went by the wayward. And yeah, I mean, even including the prop lock that I had, once that overhand right hit, brother, it didn't look good for anybody.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. Consensus picks 1 and 2. We hit on your main event, folks, so we got that. Let's go into the week. AJ, weirdly enough, this was one where we had kind of way different picks, but we ended up in a draw. 2 and 3 on the night for both of us. I hit on Cop and our dog lock, Nasrat Haqparast. People, I try to tell you, you got a feeling about these things. But AJ, you hit on probably the biggest one of the night, the guy who I think has showed the biggest promise. Let's talk about Emil, right? Hyder Emil. This dude is going to be for real. Like, legitimately, I put all respect on his name. I'm eating crow. I was wrong about you, sir. I had no idea you stepped into the fight with 3 injuries and all of that and still came in and just dog walked. I mean, our man right here, William Gomez, bro. He broke him off of injuries, and it's hard. Everyone's injured going into the fights, man. But I just think there's tremendous promise on this athlete right here. Do you think that he is the future of the sport?
Oh, absolutely, Derick. Especially you get him healthy, you get him recovered, going in there somewhat fresh as anybody could be going into a fight. He proved it. We even said not many people are able to hold Gomez against the cage, avoid the takedowns, and that's what Hyder did, brother. Just put it absolutely to him, and like you said, dog walked him all night long.
More than anything else, he just turned on to a different gear in round 3 that I don't see a lot of fighters have, man. So off of a healthy camp, I think that this man's going to be a real problem. We both moved to 22-13-1, 62.86 percentage on our accuracy. So we're holding strong. We got to creep back up to 70. This week will be that week. Prop recap. AJ, let's start with some good news. Austin Lane versus Mario Pinto. I mean, listen, heavyweight knockouts. Come on, I said it. It's Austin Lane. He puts himself in these predicaments. Pinto, he got the knockout, shook off the UFC debut jitters. So we hit on that at -115. As you just alluded to, Brundage and Marquez did not hit the over 1.5. And it was what it was, man. But if this fight would have continued on the pace that it was, were you confident in that over until they got into that exchange?
Oh, absolutely, Derick. I mean, like I said, the first rock, once I saw Marquez take a couple steps back and be a little wobbled, I was concerned. But if it would have kept going without the weird interruption, without the weird stoppage, I definitely think they could have made it past that extra minute or whatever was necessary for the round, and then into the second. Definitely got us on there right there. Solid thinking, but that's how the game goes, folks. Sorry to drop this one.
That's how the game goes, man. Man in the arena. Just get out there, make your pick, put yourself on ice, and let's see what happens. 4 takeaways, or a couple different takeaways. 4 dogs cashed. Closing odds. Timurov, he hit. Sam Patterson, Nasrat Haqparast, and then Hyder Emil. 4 total finishes, 4 in all 4 knockouts, right? Cop, Brundage, Sam Patterson, and Mario Pinto. 6 of the 10 fights went over on the rounds totals right there, AJ. So something to take into account for this week. It's been before we move into it, my last take right here, it's been pretty heavy across the board for decisions this year, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you can go back, see week after week after week, and the vast majority of the fights are hitting in those overs, and that's why I've been talking about it. Unders are hard to come by in this sport, it seems like.
Well, at least this year, right? It just really comes down to a data set, what you're pulling from it. We got some data for you, though, folks. We're done recapping UFC Fight Night 253, UFC 313. That's what we're breaking down right now. And AJ, let's not mince any words. Folks, if you made it to this point, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so. And let's talk about the consensus picks. AJ, we got 1 consensus pick, bro. This is a swing week if I've ever seen one. Mauricio Ruffy. AJ, did you know that that's not actually his name?
I learned that this week, brother. What was the anime he based it on?
It was One Piece. It was Luffy. He tried to, I guess, name himself after Luffy. It's all good. He's a traditional Brazilian name like De Santos, something like that. But hey, listen, Mauricio Ruffy, that's what we're calling him. That's our consensus pick right here over the beloved Bobby King Green. But we'll continue on. A lot of contentious picks. I'm not going to give it to you folks right now. There's the bet sheet. We're going to break it down in a moment. Stick around for that one. Let's turn it on over to the props. AJ, you got a prop at plus money that I'm like, wow, this could definitely be a minus money prop right here. Talk to the people.
Folks, think 2 minutes back what Derick said. Heavyweight KOs. That's what we're talking about right here. Blades by KO at plus money at plus 130 right here. It's an opponent in his UFC debut. So you know those jitters are there. Never been knocked out, his opponent, but he's also never faced an opponent like Curtis Blades coming in here. I'm expecting for Curtis to look for a ground and pound, get a victory inside this one, and actually get some respect that my boy Curtis Blades deserves. This is the fight to be able to prove that he's still one of the, if not the dog, one of the gatekeepers that's going to be here for a while.
I was going to say, bro, you have to imagine he has to have a chip on his shoulder. He says, you matched me up against who? I'm on the prelims. Curtis Blades, perennial title challenger in the heavyweight division. Yeah, someone's getting knocked out for sure. All right, my prop block, folks. Jalen Turner, Ignacio Bahamondes, the biggest lightweights in the division, the tallest, the longest. I think that their styles are going to clash. I think we can see a finish. I just don't think it's going to come early. I think that their strengths come in their frame. And when you have similar frames, it's going to take a little while to feel it out. Give me minus 185 for the over 1.5, and we're going to leave you right there for all of the short stuff. If you want the breakdown, follow us next. We got you. And subscribe to the Bloody Water Podcast. AJ, I know we don't like to toot our own horn that much, but over 4,000 subscribers, brother. Hey, man, we appreciate you guys. It's a blast as always. And let's give them a reward, AJ. Unfiltered, unbiased, unadulterated UFC 313 main card. Let's get it, brother.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
Magomed Ankalaev, the dark horse, man. The guy who has been almost denied a title opportunity. Now, has he fought the stiffest opposition, AJ? No, right?
No, I mean, not the stiffest. Yeah, not the stiff, but not the cream of the crop, if you will.
Pereira, knock him for the lack of wrestling or whatever the case may be. Yuri Prochazka a couple times, Jamal Hill, Jan Blachowicz, Israel Adesanya. The hit list is for real, man. You cannot deny that. I don't care if wrestling is involved or not. The only difference is Magomed Ankalaev, you spent a year fighting Johnny Walker. You spent a year fighting Iwan Kutalaba. You got to win over Anthony Smith. You got to win over Alexander Rakic, which I think is one of the better wins in his resume. And that draw, remember, to Jan Blachowicz, right? Stiff opposition. But I do think that this is going to be the big test, man. I think that there's going to be excuses set on both sides, AJ. Let's talk about that really quickly. Before we jump into numbers, right? Alex Pereira wins. Magomed Ankalaev does huge things for him. That solidifies him as, some would say, the GOAT. Crazy conversation that we're having, but sure, right? Ankalaev, given that he's not the most popular guy, if he wins, AJ, would this not set it up to say, oh, but you beat Pereira and he can't wrestle, so obviously we all knew, like something of that nature. Do you anticipate a narrative like that happening?
Especially if he's able to hold Pereira down, then it shows he finally faced a wrestler that's able to actually get to wrestling instead of wanting to stand and bang. Like that is a narrative that's going into this, especially with all the stuff going on with Ramadan and the no eating situation, but then they are eating, and who knows what's actually happening. There's a lot of talk happening between both camps and the media that's out there, so I expect not only that, but a lot of other excuses from each side.
Yeah, man, and that's kind of my point here, is that at the end of the day, right, like the narrative is setting itself up to where I think this is kind of win-win for Alex Pereira. This is kind of a lose-lose situation for Magomed Ankalaev, which makes all of this muddy. And what do we say every single time? When you have big fight feels like this, the hardest part about this is just cutting through the narrative and actually looking at the fight for what it is. So that's what I want to assess here today. AJ, the open. It's pretty much the same at where we're at right now. Minus 115 for Alex Pereira, minus 105 dog for Magomed Ankalaev. And I'm surprised to see it, given that we all know the wrestling is the big hole in Pereira's game. Now, the other thing we have to consider, super active is Alex Pereira. Not very active is Magomed Ankalaev. I don't think freshness or being wear and tear, I don't think any of that is a real concern. What I am concerned with, what I should say is, I think Pereira, man, he's in a nice groove. He's fighting every couple of months. He's saving promotions. He's got good graces. And I think that he's fought a lot of different style of opponents. But we found one thing to be evident here, and let me know if you agree with this. I think that you can't find many flaws in Pereira's game, but the one flaw you find is capitalizing when he gets over-aggressive and bullying him. When he gets pushed back, that's when you see a Khalil Roundtree actually have success, right? He's pushing him back. He's bullying the bully. If Magomed Ankalaev can use his threat of wrestling, the only real fighter to have a real legitimate threat, aside from like Jan Blachowicz, I think that he can put Alex Pereira on the back foot. What does a 5-round fight look like with him on the back foot?
Man, it'd be an interesting look, because the stoicism and the poise that Pereira brings to this fight, that's a lot of his ethos, right? That's a lot of what goes into why people like him. You see him skirting back, ducking, turning corners, and almost like we saw last weekend, right? Getting on your bike and almost running a little bit. That's changed the entire narrative of the UFC. Nobody's excited to watch him fight anymore. Nothing's going on. He's almost forced into living how he or fighting how he lives, right? Like, stand toe to toe. We're gonna swing it out, bang it out, and then if you're able to take him down and hold him down, kind of changes everything. So I do think there's a lot that could have exciting moments for Ankalaev and have a good narrative for him. But at the same point, if Pereira doesn't fight the normal way, then there's more excuses to be made for it.
Exactly. But when we're just looking at like a results perspective though, right? If he's fighting off of that back foot, if Alex Paeta has to fight that style of fight, a couple things get taken away. It's a little harder to capitalize on the calf kicks, and it's a little harder to land that coveted check hook, right? I mean, you could hit it off of a counter or something like that. But on Ankalaev, what makes his style, I think, really tricky is he can be in your face, but he's not throwing a bunch of punches. He's not throwing a bunch of strikes. He's just kind of heading you off, finding the timing, waiting for you to overcommit, and given that he's a southpaw, coming over with that big left hand. I want to talk to you about that big left hand here today, AJ, because you have to think, Paeta, his mindset is going to have to be, I have to avoid the takedown. I know this guy is actually like for real about it. One thing you notice about Paeta is when he does his takedown defense, hips back, right? Chin forward. That is literally lining yourself up perfectly for an Ankalaev straight, which is like one of, I'm not even, listen, I'm a fan of Ankalaev, but let's be real. The dude got like two main strikes. It's like a big left hand, he's got a big hook, and he's got a body kick. That's like pretty much what his game is. It's very textbook, very bread and butter. What problems do you see Alex Paeta running into, or do you think that it's just as simple as stuff to take down, hit him with some hooks, get him out of there?
Yeah, obviously, stuff to take downs, hit him with hooks, get him out of there. That is the game plan for Paeta if you're looking to go forward. But I think another X factor that Ankalaev presents is staying with it, right? Staying in the mix. Not a lot of people are looking just to stand and trade with Paeta, and I don't think Magomed's just going to sit there and look to trade the ones and twos, but he is going to be there trying to mix things up. Like you said, Derick, cutting off the cage, going forward. And if Paeta is forced to fight off the back foot, we haven't seen him have too much success doing that, especially with counter strikes, right? If, let's say, Magomed does find a hole open, which I don't think there's going to be much, but if he does find one, we might see an Izzy, right? An Izzy fight where he just knocks him out. Next thing you know, he's on the ground. Flash KOs can happen, and Magomed does have the power to get it done. It's just what worries me is him overcommitting to specifically just taking down Paeta, because that's his only route to win. If he's overcommitting, then he's just worried about one thing. Paeta doesn't have much to worry about besides that one thing.
It's funny because I thought you were going to go into a different direction with the overcommitting. I see one pretty big flaw in Ankalaev's game with the overcommitment of that straight left. Leaves it out there hanging just a little bit too long. And I'm like, man, if you do that against Paeta, he will get you out of there. You kind of have to fight almost a perfect fight for Ankalaev. Only difference is if you get rocked, you have to take him down. The other narrative is that Ankalaev doesn't shoot takedowns. Let's be real. He averages, if you're taking a look at the numbers, less than a takedown per 15 minutes. But you can say that he has landed 8 takedowns in his last 10 fights. So the takedown threat is there. I don't think he's just going to stand with Alex Paeta. I think this is going to be a mixed martial arts affair. So let's talk about the actual results, man. Where's the value at right here? If you're taking a look at some of these props, I would say if you're looking at a submission for Ankalaev, which I think is one of the things you have to account. I think it'd be silly not to at least think about it. Plus 950. AJ, they're giving the man no shot. I'm thinking ground and pound TKO or submission from the grappling edge. Otherwise, we just pretty much bet points. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm looking at points as well, especially with the minus 115, minus 105. You're basically looking at even money right there with whoever you're looking to fight with. Unless you're looking at a TKO or, like you said, Derick, the submission for an Ankalaev corner. I do think a TKO for the Pereira side is likely to happen, but I do give a lot of credit to the chin and the prowess that Magomed Ankalaev provides right here. I like the money line overall.
Dog, 4 knockouts in his last 5 fights. Pereira's knocking out the majority of the fights that he's had in the UFC. I definitely do think that if Ankalaev can't get the takedown, I don't think that this is like a drag-him-out decision for where Pereira wins. I think he definitely wins via knockout. Let's talk about the rounds, though. Under 3.5, minus 135. Over 3.5, plus 105. These are live odds right now. Which one are you taking?
Ooh. I like the over, Derick, excuse me. I like the over on this one, especially with how I expect styles to collide, the grits to be tested. I do think it's going to be over that 3.5. It makes sense.
Safest bet that you can make then, over 3.5 if you're not convinced on who you think is going to win. I think you look at Ankalaev here as a pure dog play. And you look at him as a dog play because I think that this is a rightful favorite who you're basically getting even odds at. So, you have to smash if you're an Ankalaev bettor. But again, if you're on the fence, over 3.5 rounds is the best bet that you can make here. I don't think it gets more complicated than that. Again, folks, half the battle that we have here is literally just cutting through the narrative and figuring out in a pure fisticuffs, pure fist fight, who wins. I have to do it. It's off merit. It's off of history. It's off of legacy. The dark horse, Magomed Ankalaev, and new at UFC 313. But AJ, you're rolling with tried and true, yeah?
Tried and true, and still Alex Paeta, and I do like that TKO. But I think it's going to come in the later rounds.
All right, folks, there is your main event. We had to cut through a lot of nonsense to get there. All of the rest ones, we're going to be talking a lot more about the actual numbers. And let's just start with Justin Gaethje, Rafael Fiziev, number 2. All right, the Dan Hooker fight off at the last minute. A lot of dudes who had their hands up saying, pick me, I'm ready to scrap. They gave it to Fiziev again. Even Fiziev said, hey, Gaethje, he didn't have to, but he gave me another opportunity. I didn't even deserve it. This is another lose-lose for Justin Gaethje. And AJ, this is one of the few times that I've legitimately seen Gaethje be completely written off. Like, people are like, this dude's done. He's 36 years old, coming off of that nasty knockout. But on the other hand, they're kind of making it seem like Max Holloway, even though he was winning the majority of the fight, like he was just like dropping bombs on him the entire fight. You went toe-to-toe, you came up on the wrong side, and you got stiffed. It's not like it hasn't happened to him before. Is this a regular Justin Gaethje, or is this a Tony Ferguson-esque type fight right here? What do you make of it?
Ooh, I'm not willing to go that far, Derick. Not willing to go that far at all. And in fact, if Justin Gaethje's ego didn't get involved when he saw another dog pointing on the ground at the end of that fight, he would have more than likely not ended up sleeping. I mean, yeah, he's down to trade. He's a wild man. That's why we love him. But I do not think his mental capacity is diminished enough to be able to say, like, hey, it might be time to hang it up. I mean, he after all, is what the other fighter called the Homer Simpson of MMA.
Yeah.
As much as that narrative was out there, Justin Gaethje is a very talented and tactical fighter.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, man. It's crazy how it works because in reality, the odd line would probably be different. A lot of things would be different if he just would have went to a decision and not like, you know what I mean, ate the canvas. But it is what it is. You get Justin Gaethje, live odds, dog odds, plus 140 comeback for Gaethje, minus 170 is Fiziev. And AJ, a lot of people thought that Fiziev won the first fight. I bet on Fiziev. I thought he won the first fight too, but he didn't. He lost. And the reason being, I think, is because it's that experience of Justin Gaethje, man. It's inconsistent right now. Sometimes you get a clean version. Sometimes you get a wild version. But I think the experience of him and the top level fighters that he's had to, you know, go toe-to-toe against, I just think it has an intangible that's hard to describe. Now, Fiziev is younger. He's more athletic. He arguably should be a better striker. So it's just a matter of, like, does the short notice coming off of the knee injury, last time you fought was back in 2023, you got some things working against you too. This isn't the spry, hungry dude who's just been waiting for the opportunity. I think it's just like they say, when opportunity comes, you're almost never ready, but you got to take it anyways. How much advantage do either one of these fighters have? Do you think Gaethje has it because he's been training regularly?
Yeah, I do, and especially the mental advantage to know that you can go in there and go to war with a guy and get the points, get the win, get the dub for the Gaethje side. And what's interesting to me, Derick, the narrative that every fighter has going into a Justin Gaethje fight is after the fight, I'm going to instantly just leave and go to the hospital. Dan Hooker said it. Fiziev said it. He even said, he's like, that one part I don't like about fighting him is I know I'm going to end up in a hospital after. So going into that, yeah, I think that gives a mental advantage to Justin Gaethje right here. But for Fiziev, man, he has a lot of the intangibles. Yeah, he's not the young spry buck, but now he has become the grizzled vet that we're seeing fighting. Arguably more technical, arguably faster, and he has a couple different tools in his tool belt that he's able to pull to be able to keep Justin Gaethje on his toes.
Yeah, man. I mean, you got to just see, is he going to be able to step up to those pre-injury levels too, man? The athleticism that he has, the kind of fighter that he has, it's going to be interesting. What if we see a little bit more of a reserved approach from Fiziev? Who knows? Look at the 3 wins that he had prior to the 2-fight loss streak, right? You have Green. You have Bobby Green, you have Brad Riddell, and you have RDA, which are like fantastic. And you finished RDA and you finished Brad Riddell, right? But I mean, come on, dog. This isn't Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway. It's just kind of a different caliber. So I think that when they step into this, I don't really see this being a repeat of the first fight, but I'm interested to see where can we take advantage. Let's just talk about the result. The last time it went to a decision, and fair. 2 fantastic strikers, man. Had great chins. Both got bloodied up. And before the facial damage to Rafael Fiziev, man, it was going to be a really, really razor close fight. Fight goes the distance odds. Even right now. Bet 100, win 100. Are you taking it?
Ooh, fight to go the distance at even money. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it, Derick. I mean, I don't think it's going to be the same fight as the first fight, but I think there's a really high likelihood that we could see the same outcome, or at least a decision, depending on who wins, a victory for either one.
So given that you have these 2 fighters who are in unknown circumstances, this is what makes betting these fights a little bit harder to predict, is the environment around it, right? Given that we have this much uncertainty, what do you feel better as? Do you feel better as picking a side and saying, hey, I'm going to take the favorite, I'm going to take Fiziev, the young spry guy? Or do you feel like this is more appropriate for rounds in this specific matchup?
In this specific matchup, Derick, I think it's more appropriate for rounds. In fact, while writing out my notes, like I had my pick already going, but while typing them out, I wrote Justin Gaethje's name and they just automatically thinking, yeah, he's going to win this fight. But there's a lot that goes into this one. There's a lot of nuances, so I'm a little bit back and forth on who I think's actually going to be winning, and I think it depends on who's going to be that dog that night. So I feel a lot more comfortable betting rounds right here.
Yeah, big power on Gaethje, more volume you're going to see on Fiziev, generally speaking. Again, the big question that comes into mind for me is the injury side, the injury recovery from Rafael Fiziev, and then what version of Gaethje do we see? Because he mentioned, hey, I kind of settled into this more technical version of myself, and that wasn't the answer. So I'm like, yo, are we going to see the wild Gaethje who's going to be set up to get head kick countered off of something? Like, I don't have those answers. But one thing that I do know is that I like Gaethje at dog odds. I just think that this is another narrative play right here. I think Fiziev, don't get me wrong, Fiziev should be a favorite, I think, in like a matchup like this, just based off of like looking at their age and their metrics and stuff. But I think it should be like a minus 125, you know what I mean? Like plus 105 type, like something like tight like that. So for the sake of what I'm doing, folks, I am rolling with the Justin Gaethje. That is my official pick. I don't think it's early. I don't think it's early enough to write him off as the competitor, a top 5 level competitor. But I don't feel confident really betting either of these fighters. So I'm going to go rounds, and I'm going to go over 2.5 to leave room for a finish at minus 125. I actually think that's a very fair price, and I think that if you put the house on it, you put a solid amount, I think you're going to be joyfully surprised. What do you make of it, AJ?
Yeah, Derick. I mean, I see the same points you're talking about. That's the same, almost same reasons I'm betting over on Fiziev, right? Yeah. I think he's on paper, he has the tangibles that you're looking at to look for somebody who's going to be pushing forward. The first fight, razor close until the very last round. So if he's able to keep to the game plan and not just end up getting overwhelmed by Justin Gaethje, I think he has a very good shot of winning this fight. I also not too confident betting strictly a person, so I'm with you. I might even look at that fight goes to decision prop right there.
Yeah, man. I mean, even money if you want to take it, right? But then again, finishes could happen in this sport at any given moment, and that's going to be my hedge right there. Just that 2.5. What do we call it? 2.5 minutes, right? That's all the little extra space that we got to give them. So I'm going to roll with Justin Gaethje on a dog play, dog or pass, in my opinion, AJ. But you're rolling with the opposite.
Yes, sir. Rafael Fiziev. We'll see if we can get it done to that decision.
Oh, you don't sound confident, brother. How you feeling?
I don't feel confident, Derick. I'm telling you, I've been back and forth all week thinking about who's going to be winning this fight. I can see both guys winning this fight. This one's a very hard one to pick. Again, why I'm not laying money down specifically on either fighter right here.
There we go, folks. Hedge your bets, play your rounds, and there's your pick for the co-main. But now it gets a little bit easier for these picks, I would say. Jalen Turner, the Tarantula, he's back, and he's fighting Ignacio Bahamondes. AJ, I really do think that this is more favorable for Bahamondes than it is for Turner. I think this is the UFC saying, all right, bro, we've given you your opportunities. You're coming up short, so now you got to fight the up-and-coming dudes. The guys that were you when that was you a couple years ago. You know what I mean? Like, now it's time to play the gatekeeper almost, even though Jalen Turner, brother, if you look at it, man, it's just like he gets to that peak, and something weird happened. And I think that Moicano fight was a inflection point, if you will. It's that multiverse where it's like, man, you went down this path, your life, it turns out this way, you went down this path, now it's a whole different outcome. So imagine he wins that fight with that crazy knockout. Moicano didn't get the opportunities. What if it was him fighting Islam short notice? You know what I mean? Instead of Moicano. All of that. But we can't talk about that. What we can talk about is Bahamondes, who's been looking like not an incredible finisher, don't get me wrong. He's actually going to a decision in a lot of his fights. But a long, rangy dude with an arsenal of weapons who was only what? Let me see. What's the age on Bahamondes? 27 years old, bro. Turner's only 29, so they're a comparable age. But he has the frame and he has the tools to make this a very intriguing fight where I think in any other situation, Turner would be a pretty massive favorite. But if you look at it, he's a dog. Plus 110 dog against Bahamondes. AJ, I know what sides we're on, but for the context of the people listening at home, tell me, what has Bahamondes done in his UFC career, his MMA career, to be a minus 130 favorite against a fighter like Jalen Turner? I just don't think he's done enough. What do you think?
I wouldn't say it's not that he's done enough, Derick. It's what he's done lately, right? We're always talking about this as a sport of what have you done for me lately? And in his past 2 fights, he's been knocking people out in the first round. And that's where a lot of people are excited to see Ignacio Bahamondes come in and go to fight. And then when you go against a guy like Jalen Turner, who has almost all the same intangibles that Bahamondes does, right? Long, lanky fighter, good power, able to find his moments where he can succeed. But he's dropped a couple. And don't get me wrong, you look at the names, right? Moicano, Hooker, Gamrot, like those are very, very talented fighters. And I think a lot of the people see that in Bahamondes, the same kind of style of fighter, right? Somebody who's willing to go in there, mix up the ones and twos, get to work, and actually put some pressure on Jalen Turner. And I think that's what he's going to try to do. But this is an interesting one, Derick, because I do feel like it is not necessarily a turning of the tides, but almost like a passing a baton in the race, you know?
I'm going to tell you something different. This is a y'all must have forgot moment right here. Listen, bro, he came up short, Jalen Turner, he came up short on 2 split decisions. Come on, man. Those are wins in his favor. We'd be having a different conversation. Hooker fight, you were winning until you just got overtaken, right? Like you beat the brakes off of Hooker. He's the hangman for a reason, right? Moicano, you walked off, you tried to be cool. Come on, man. What was the one? It was the Bobby Green fight where he had said it. He was all like, I didn't follow up on him because I felt that Bobby Green fight where I kept hitting him and he was already out. I didn't want to do that again. So you got to be a savage in there. But again, this is where it really comes down to, man. Let's take a further look at the numbers right here. First thing I want to talk about is the over. 2.5 is the over, plus 120 for the over, minus 155 for the under, and I think that's for good reason. I think Jalen Turner in the first 1.5 rounds is an incredible athlete. I think after you go past 1.5, man, a cliff hits, and now anything can happen. So you have to bet on Jalen Turner early if you're going to go that route. Bahamondes, though, we just really haven't seen him been dragged into deep waters yet. So what do you make of that?
Yeah, we haven't seen Bahamondes dragged into deep waters, and I think this is a fight that could, especially because of having to fill out the ranges, having to know where you can't strike, because usually you're going in there as the taller fighter. But, I mean, I do think both of these fighters can end the fight early. I'm not saying an under 1.5 is the way to go quite yet, but I mean they have the potential to be able to find it, and it's whoever's going to be making that. That's who's going to be on the path. Because I agree with you, Derick. A couple different turns, a couple different outcomes, and either one of these fighters could be looking at championship gold within the next year or two.
So the over is 2.5, right? So I think playing the under on 2.5 is super reasonable. Like I think that's right there for you. You know what I mean? So it just comes down to the other aspects of these fighters' games that you haven't really seen. What have you seen from Bahamondes on the ground?
Bahamondes on the ground, good defense. I mean, nothing much to write home about. I mean, yeah, he's much more of a precision striker, especially at range. Other than that, he cannot get slaughtered.
I would say untested. Hopefully. That's what I would say, right? But one thing that we know about Jalen Turner, because most people, when they think Jalen Turner, they think the long, straight punches. One thing that I think people are forgetting about is this dude is a finisher when it comes down to grappling, man. When he senses the opportunity to jump on a guillotine, jump on a choke, man, it's there. And with those long arms that he has, those long limbs, I think that that's something that we should at least be thinking about. Now, don't get me wrong. He hasn't hit a submission since the Brad Riddell fight, man. It's been quite a while. But you don't need to when you're knocking dudes out and going to bloody wars and all of that good stuff. I just think that, again, this is a y'all must have forgot fight from the sense of Jalen Turner had championship aspirations. He's only 29 years old. And when you're coming off of a couple weird outcomes like this, I just don't think that unless he quits in this fight, from like a cardio perspective, I don't want to be here perspective, I think he's in it every second of the fight. And I think Bahamondes needs to prove to the people why he should be a betting favorite over this guy. From a price perspective, this is nothing against him as a fighter, but AJ, you tell me, you're breaking out your pocketbook and you're going to lay a wager out on a fighter. You're playing minus money on a guy who hasn't fought dudes similar to the caliber of Jalen Turner or his top 5 people or his last 5 people that he fought. You got to show it to me. You know what I mean? Am I being too biased here? What are we thinking?
No, you're not being too biased, Derick, and I agree with you. As much as minus 130 isn't that steep of a price, it's a little too steep for what we've seen being proven by Bahamondes. If we're looking like a minus 105, plus 115, kind of something around there, then I'm happy with the minus money. I'm not too concerned about that one. But minus 30 against a proven fighter like Jalen Turner, which admittedly, he even said it himself in the last fight against Moicano felt heavy, right? He was taken back, like, oh my God, this is something going to be a different level of what's actually out there. I don't think Jalen Turner wants to be surprised again with that same kind of feeling in the cage. So he's been working hard. And it's going to be interesting to see if Bahamondes can provide that feeling again, but in a different way and just light him up from the outside.
Yeah, man. So if you can't wrestle him up, you're going to have to stand toe-to-toe, and it's going to be mano-a-mano. Who wins it? I'm going to rock with Jalen Turner on this one. I'm not going to rock on anything other than a plus 110 Jalen Turner dog pick. I'm keeping it super simple and to the point. Again, y'all must have forgot if you're telling my picks. AJ, give him what you got.
This is the new guns right here, folks. We're going Ignacio Bahamondes, and I think he's going to get this one by decision. Looking at a plus 265 odds right here. One of the better picks, at least, that you're getting for Bahamondes. Plus money. Hopefully, Young Gun can get it done.
All right, we'll see it. Amanda Lemos, she returns fighting Yasmin Lucindo. We're noticing a theme here, right? You got the people who've had their opportunity. Now they're feeding them to the young guns who are trying to come up. And I think that this is another one that is, it's interesting, brother. Look at the open, plus 125 dog, Amanda Lemos, and you're looking at the minus 150 favorite in Yasmin Lucindo. Now that has changed since the open. Plus 115 dog for Lemos, minus 135 for Lucindo. AJ, all the same questions that we just asked in the last matchup, right? What has Lucindo particularly done to prove herself to be this large of a favorite against somebody who, one, we know has rare knockout power in this division, and number two, unless you could take her down and hold her down, you have to deal with that knockout power. So Lucindo hasn't, I mean, she's got 3 career submissions, I think one of them in the UFC, hasn't leaned on too much grappling. We really see her do most of her work in the trading, and we've seen even a Yasmin Jauregui, right, in that fight where she just she outboxed her without, other words to say right here. I think Lemos, man, I don't think she's going to need to go through that technical battle. I think one good shot, that can end the fight. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely, Derick. She's one of the few fighters, Amanda Lemos, that's able to have that knockout power we've seen. I mean, especially with a fighter who's willing to advance in not unwavered, but like unprotected. And I don't want to say like not hands up, right? But kind of just blitz into attacks. Amanda Lemos has beautiful counters and beautiful timing. That's where things got to really start to get worried. But I do agree with you. I think the best work that Yasmin Lucindo gets done is in those exchanges. And if Lucindo was close enough, has the right spacing, Amanda Lemos doesn't have all the pop on her shots. It's a little too close in. Then she's able to get grappled up, get taken to the ground, and then that's where we see where Amanda Lemos has struggled with the elite grapplers. Now it's just time for Lucindo to prove if she is an elite grappler.
It's interesting, though, man. Yeah, you get submitted by Jan Jandiroba, but you beat Mackenzie Dern. But then you lose very dominantly to Wei Li, the champion, but we know what she's capable of. And then, she was able to actually get the victory, though, over Michelle Waterson-Gomez, right? Another person who late in her career turned a little bit more to the wrestling. So she's not unproven in the grappling. I just think that this is, again, a price tag that I cannot take in good faith. I think Lucindo is good, brother. Don't get me wrong, man. She's young. She's got a ton of experience. And now she's getting these level of fights that are going to take her to that next level. But it's hard to deny the experience Lemos has. I don't really have much on this fight other than if she can avoid the takedown. It's a matter of, can you stay away from the big power shot? We know she's rooted, she's down, she's planted, and she's ready to pop it on you. Lucindo gets hit. She just weathers the storm and she pushes forward. So I bet dog or I bet pass. Simple as that. I don't have any other take on this. What do you got for us?
Simple as that, Derick. When I was betting on this one, I was looking at this one, I thought Lucindo was going to be the underdog going forward, and that's what I thought, right? So going in, I was expecting Lucindo to want to work forward, want to be crashing in. Well, Lemos has that plain stance, looks to drop some bombs. I'm going to bet the wrestler on this one, or at least the grappling prowess of Yasmin Lucindo. Kind of cut and dry. We got a striker versus a grappler right here. Whoever's able to get in their bag first gets the dub.
I disagree. Lucindo's not a grappler, dude. You know what I mean? She's a striker. This is a striker-striker matchup. So that's why. If this was a striker-grappler matchup, I would have a different take. But given that she leans so much on the striking, I'm just, you gotta be a better striker than Lemos for me to give you that pass. But last one, this is where we could provide real value here. Interesting number. I just thought the number was interesting. Over 2.5 rounds, minus 300. Fight to go the distance, minus 240. What do you think?
I saw that earlier, Derick, when I was looking at it. The minus 240 for the decision makes all the sense in the world here. Only 2.5 more minutes. Yeah, a finish can happen, but if it doesn't happen early, I don't think it's going to happen at all. So if you're looking for that, you're looking for those kind of numbers, the decision's definitely the way to go.
And I'm just going to say, folks, my interpretation of this is that the odds makers think that a finish is happening. There's no way you put that line up. That doesn't make any sense. Over 2.5. Minus 300, meaning that this fight ends, but it probably ends late. Go the distance, minus 2. It doesn't make sense. So one of those lines has to be wrong. So take that for what it's worth. We just do a little analysis for you. And let's open up, AJ, with Bobby King Green versus Mauricio Ruffy. All right, man. What is Bobby Green? Excuse me. What is King Green? What does he need to do to get back in winning order, bro? You got submitted. It was a blooper reel. What do you say? He slipped on the banana peel against Paddy Pimblett. It happens to the best of them. Well, you don't got to worry too much about a submission threat right here. Hoofy, he's gonna come and he's gonna try to strike with you and make it flashy, and that's what makes this fight fun, bro. Because two flashy dudes who are going to stand, who are they going to trade, and Hoofy in the first 10 minutes, 8 minutes or so, man, watch out, right? But that last 7 minutes, AJ, that's what concerns me. If Bobby Green can be durable, we know he walks through him, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially if Bobby Green's able to make it like a dirty street fight, I think he can walk through Hoofy.
But I'm saying the late rounds. Early, I'm concerned. I'm not gonna lie to you. I am concerned early. Like, I think that if he eats a couple good ones, that chin goes pretty quickly. But if he can weather and say, all right, man, it's middle of round 2. Let me hit that extra gear, walk to you with my hands down. Like, all right, what's up? Let's do it. Because we know Hoofy, even though his strikes landed per minute, 6 strikes, man, like high volume striker. But he's kind of one shot, 1-2. One shot. It's not like he's a in-your-face type of like a technical boxer striker. He's very much like a sniper. He's gonna hit you on the money. He's gonna hit you with the no-look jabs and the whole nine. And James Yontop, right? James Yontop, what he showed us is that if you can be durable, I think you can kind of mentally get to Mauricio Hoofy a little bit. If he's like, yo, I know I knocked all these dudes out with this shot. How come you aren't going down? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the flaws of when you're just dropping people left and right. When you hit somebody with everything you got and they're just standing there smiling at you, that is a big draw to your ego. And the thing is, though, I mean, Bobby Green, his strikes absorbed per minute, 4 strikes every single minute. Like, this dude's getting pieced up, but you don't see too many knockouts out there. I mean, yeah, he can get knocked out like you did against Turner, but still, Bobby Green is durable. He's weathering a lot of the strikes, and as much as he is getting hit, he still does have very sound defense. He's in there moving, he's shaking, he's doing things. But the thing, though, Derick, we're seeing a Mauricio Hoofy who is fighting with the fighting nerds, right? He's getting good training. He's learning those things. I'm expecting him to grow a lot from his last fights, and especially being young, only 28 versus a 38-year-old. I think age and speed and talent do come into this fight.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And let's also give Bobby Green a little bit of credit. I think that those numbers are inflated for the strikes that he takes. Excuse me. I think that a lot of them is bouncing off the shoulder, doing stuff like that. You know what I mean? But it gets counted as points. But I agree, man. So let's talk some numbers here, because this could be very simple. First off, TKO prop for Mauricio Hoofy, -120. Disrespect, or is that a fair number?
TKO prop for Mauricio Hoofy, -120. Yeah, that's disrespectful. That's disrespectful against King Green for sure. I as much as I think a knockout is has the potential to hit, I give King Green a lot of credit for how he's able to fight and withstand a lot of things.
ESPN Bet Sportsbook official. You don't see this often, brother. Total rounds 0.5, a half of a round, not even 1.5. You got a half of a round. +110 for the over, -140 for the under. This sports book is saying Mauricio Hoofy is knocking this dude out in like 30 seconds, dog. That's why I was saying I'm giving him not the Conor McGregor-esque, but he's a -500 favorite against a time-tested 50-fight veteran in Bobby Green. I just think that either Green is going to make this a very competitive fight and a wake-up call for Hoofy, or Hoofy's the real deal and he's just going to starch him. What do you make?
Yeah, Hoofy's the real deal, folks. But if you're betting on that sports book, you bet the over all day long at plus money, because no chance, man. Bobby Green, I guess I shouldn't say no chance. Mauricio Hoofy can get a knockout within the first 30 seconds. But I don't think that's going to be the case right here, especially with how slick of a striker Bobby Green is. That's kind of wild there. That surprises me that that's out there.
You don't see it often, brother. You weren't even seeing Ngannou fights with this total, brother. Like that, and this is 155 pounds, man. Again, they're giving him the Conor treatment. But AJ, this is the one consensus pick that we got. It is Mauricio Hoofy. So all love to King Green, but age does play a factor in it. Speed, recent form, and I think that Hoofy, if he doesn't win in a knockout, in a vicious knockout, I think he just wins on damage accumulation. 3 rounds of just. He had better shots, you know what I mean? So I think that should be a fair one. You got any other take on this one?
Nah, brother. Let's see if King Green can show people what it's done, because especially at those odds, +350, you might throw a little hedge on there if you're feeling spicy.
If you got to feel real spicy, but yeah, +350. I mean, Now I'm intrigued. All right, now let me not get too ahead of myself. All right, AJ. Hey, listen, that was your main card for UFC 313, but the fun does not end there. We got a couple bonus plays that we need to cover. And AJ, we've gone long, so we need to run through these joints.
And now, the Bloody Water Podcast presents your Fight Night bonus plays.
First one, brother, because we starting off the bat. We starting fresh. You got, and let me make sure I got my names right, fun bounce back fight for both of these fighters. Armen Petrosyan versus Bruno Ferreira, under 2.5 rounds at -165. Ferreira, knockout artist. Petrosyan, you just got double spinning back fist the other day, right? You probably jaw still hurting a little bit from that. Hey, shout out to the Armenian killer right there in Petrosyan. This dude is a beast. He's a monster. But Ferreira, if he lands, things can be devastating. -165 for under 2.5. Talk to him.
We said in the beginning, folks, not a lot of unders are hitting right here, but check this out. Ferreira has never gone to a decision, right? And 13 of his 14 fights didn't even hit the third round. Petrosyan, he does have some longer fights right here, but his last two in the UFC have ended before that 2.5-minute mark. These two clashing styles, and especially with the last way their fights have outcomed, means this under is hitting right here.
All right, that's a fun one. Josh Van, the fearless one, he is back, and he fights Ray Suruya. So I'm going to get it right. This dude's a stud. This dude is really good. I should know what his name is. But fight to end in a knockout +185. Interesting, brother. Interesting, because I think that fight to end just like in a finish in general could be a good play here. But what are you seeing in the knockout? +185.
+185, only a month prep time for the Ray corner to Suya corner because Silva withdrew from the fight from Van originally, but both fighters push the pace right here. Van hits really, really hard, and with Ray being young and wanting to make a fight, wanting to make a splash into the UFC and only his second fight, I think he's going to want to push the pace and hunt the KO. That's why I see this one ending in a KO.
I'm mad that they're even making this fight, man, because these two dudes deserve to grow a little bit more before they give them that kind of matchup. Van is the real deal. You can't count him out anymore. But Suruya, I'm telling you, if you don't know, you're going to find out. All right. AJ, I'm surprised to see it because I think that I've lost faith. I think I've lost all faith in this one, but we're going to talk about it. The Great White, Alex Morono, money line bet over Carlos Lille at +575. What do you got here?
Yeah, no, this one is just because it shocked me. +575. Don't get me wrong. I'm not shocked in the fact that Leal is the favorite, but I'm just shocked at the price right here, man. +575. Morono, don't get me wrong, Derick. I can understand why that exhaustion or that exuberation is there, right? A lot of times people are betting on Morono, and you don't know which version of him is going to show up. But he is a dog at the end of the day. You stack the cards against him, especially at a +575. He might come back and have a performance, especially with how Leal fought Fakhretdinov in his last fight. I see a similar style. How Morono is going to approach this one might be a lot closer than what a lot of people are expecting right here. And plus, Morono gets zero respect. I think he's going to be absolutely have a chip on his shoulder.
That's fair. I love the optimistic mind right there, my friend. All right, now our last one. It's the co-main event. Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev, number 2, to go the distance at +100. I like it. Sneakily, might be the best play of the night. Talk to him.
Yeah, this one, I mean, we talked about it before. If you're not looking to bet one fighter or the other, the rounds make the most sense. It's what happened almost exactly 2 years ago. Who knows which fighter is actually going to be more improved going forward, but I still think it has the most likely outcome to actually hit of all the decisions, all the props on that fight, and even on this list right here. This one's looking spicy.
All right, well, let me recap them there for you. Armen Petrosyan versus Bruno Ferreira, under 2.5 rounds. Josh Van versus Suruya, fight to end in a knockout. Alex Morono, money line, dog line, +575. And then Gaethje Fiziev to go the distance. What is the official UFC 313 bonus play?
Ooh, Derick, it's hard not to choose the under at minus money because we all think that one's going to happen. But I'm going, or I guess we're going with Justin Gaethje versus Fiziev to end, going the distance, especially that plus money, folks. It's happened once before, probably going to happen again. Make sure you cash your checkbooks.
And folks, don't forget, because we actually already talked about it, the bet was so good, the play is so good, it's no longer at plus money, it's even money right now, so snatch that right now before it hits minus money. Bet 100, win 100, doesn't get better than that. All right, folks, that was your bonus plays. Still more action up next. Let's talk about the sleepers here, AJ. Interesting card, because there are some legitimate sleepers on here that people, I'm very confident, have no clue about. So, unknowns of today, stars of tomorrow.
Time for some fight night.
If you ain't paying attention, you're gonna sleep on me and I'm gonna wake you up.
You got a fun one in the middleweight division? Yeah, talk to him, brother. What do you got?
185 right here, folks. Ozzy Diaz versus Jordan Santos, right? If you don't know any of these names, you better tune in because these guys are going to be the future. Jordan Santos, great grappler, technical striking, likes to push the pace. If you get sloppy, he's going to piece you up and or tap you out. Ozzy Diaz, I mean, he's also very, very exciting. I'm expecting more people to know him. Great striking, decently well-rounded. If he's able to let his hands go, he could run away with this fight. I mean, he runs away with a lot of them, but he could run away with this one right here. The need to knows, folks, 16 combined finishes between the two of them, 10 of them being KOs, the majority done by Diaz. Of the 4 submissions that Santos has, 3 of them are in the first round. Don't blink. Like I said, these folks are the future of UFC.
That's going to be a fun one right there. And to not be too similar, my sleeper, we got another Santos in here. But this time we're going to the featherweight division. Myron Santos versus Francis Marshall. Folks, if you remember the name, he was on the most recent season of The Ultimate Fighter. Made a great showing of himself right there. Listen, folks, 13 combined finishes between these two. All the knockouts pretty much are coming on the Santos side. 4 submissions coming on the Francis Fire Marshall side. You've heard the name Francis Marshall because he's been in here, he's been doing the thing, had a little bit of an up and down run thus far, but he's only 8-2 in his young career. Here's the reason this is a sleeper. Super patient boxer and Myron Santos, forgive me. He's going to be in your face, he's going to be patient, he's going to be looking for the kill shot. But if he can't get the kill shot or if he overextends, Francis Marshall could easily snatch up a submission right here, make this a fun fight. I can anticipate a finish happening on either sides of the equation right here, but I think that this is a sleeper because you need to know who these fighters are, more specifically Myron Santos. I think that he's going to be very, very good in the UFC specifically, and this is your time to say, oh yeah, I caught that dude who made it big. Yeah, I used to watch him back in the day. Oh, where did we hear that at? Bloody Water Podcast, baby. We got you covered. So those are your sleepers right there. Short, to the point. You know how it goes. And AJ, perfect timing right now to jump into a quick but an efficient UFC 313 mailbag. So let's get into it. All right, man. First one. This is the main event. This is an interesting question. This is from Greenbat 000. AJ, does it really come down to Alex breaking down Big Unk with those powerful leg kicks? Will this determine how the fight ends? Cut and dry question, to the point, and I think it's an intriguing question because while it seems basic, this is a split stance matchup, Southpaw versus Orthodox, and I think it's going to be a little bit more nuanced. So what do you make of it?
Yes, that's exactly what I thought, Derick. Split stance matchup, right? You got the Southpaw and Ankh looking to come forward. If Alex Pereira is able to do a lot of damage on that front foot. I mean, we all know wrestling. It's harder to push if one of your legs is especially damaged, especially the front one. So I do think it could have a lot to determine on this fight if Alex Pereira does get taken down a lot in that first round and then he's able to come back and stop those takedowns with some leg kicks. Could change the tide. We'll see if it actually does. What do you think?
Let's not forget, Ankalaev just got his legs beat up, right? Like he checks kicks, don't get me wrong, right? And it was just one of these recent fights, man. He's getting his leg completely trashed and he did nothing about it. He just walked around with a limp leg and still won his fight. You know what I mean? It just was what it was. So I've always thought about that. I was like, man, this is not shaping out good. If he has to fight Pereira, that's literally his like number one weapon is to beat you up with the calf kicks, immobilize you, and then knock you out. I just think that he's going to be smarter. If he falls into that trap, then we knew that he wasn't the dark horse we made him out to be. Like, come on, man. You're fighting for a championship. What are we talking about? So, do I think it comes down to just that? No, I don't. I think that's one crucial factor, but with the split stance, it's going to make it a little bit harder, especially since Pereira is going to have to use the lead leg for those calf kicks. More or less, right? More or less. We'll see. All right. Glitterfin 73. Gaethje versus Fiziev number 2 announced. Of course, we've already talked about it. Does short notice favor the guy who's been training, Gaethje, or the hungry striker coming off a break, Fiziev? What's your take? So we kind of talked about it right here. Fiziev isn't coming off of a break. He's coming off of an injury hiatus, right? So it's a little bit different. And Gaethje has been training, but he's been training for Dan Hooker, who is not even remotely in the same stratosphere of what Rafael Fiziev is. So that's the question, brother. What's your answer?
It's weird because both of them in their own situation have their favors with what they're dealing with, right? Mm-hmm. Gaethje, yeah, he's been training, but like Derick said, not for this kind of style of fighter. Fiziev, yeah, he's hungry, but not because he's coming off a break. It's because he's coming off injury. He wants to get back into that thing, and that's where I think both sides clash. Who does it favor more, though? I want to say Fiziev. It might be biased. Might be being biased right here, but I do think having that injury where you think your game's taken away from you, and now you're going to go get one back on the guy that very narrowly beat you the first time, I think it favors him.
See, I'm going to take the opposite approach, and I think it favors Gaethje. And here's the reason why. This isn't even going to be a physical reason. This is going to be a mental reason. The reason is because you have short notice. You have a really, really big opportunity that you're not probably 100% ready for. But let's talk about bigger implications. If Fiziev loses this fight, right, and let's say it's another decision, right? Now you're down 0-2 to Justin Gaethje, to a top 5 guy. You just showed that against top 5 opposition, you're not able to get the job done. How quickly are they going to take the guy? What's Fiziev right now? Like number 12, number 13 in the division? How quickly are they going to say, here's another top 5 guy? They'll probably say, all right, bro, well, how about we have you fight number 10 or fight number 14 or something like that. String together a couple good wins, and then maybe we'll talk top 5. I'm thinking from that perspective right here. Gaethje, he's perennial. He fights everybody in the top 10. I think that's like literally every one of his fights has been an opponent in the top 10 of his division. So that's the answer. That's not definitive, but Glitterfin73, hope we got the job done for you, brother. All right, man. Last one here, AJ. Acceptable, add 1930. This is Turner in Bahamondes. Turner is huge, and he's a fun fighter, but he comes up short of the elites every time. And when you think he's about to break through with a knockout over Moicano, he tries a walk-off KO and gets grappled into submission immediately after. He needs to level up his game because the size difference isn't working as well with the top contenders. So I think, in essence, what he's saying is kind of echoing what I had mentioned earlier. Like, just when he gets to those moments, those like career-defining moments, we're just falling short. But do you think that he needs to change up his whole game? Do you think that this individual sentiment is correct? What do you think?
No, I agree with the sentiment. I can see where he's thinking. And like you said, it echoes what we were talking about before. But switch up the entire game, not at all, man. Jalen Turner just needs to double down and be the animal that he is in there, and not let people off. Like not. And I don't want to say be soft, but if you're gonna knock somebody out and then don't go in for the finish in this kind of game, that's a little soft, and that cannot be in here for the UFC. You're basically fighting for your lives in there. Jalen Turner needs to take that to heart and actually get things going. And if he does, man, we've said it before, he has the potential to be a star. He just has to make those moments matter, and this could be the fight to be able to prove that.
That's fair. That's fair. And this is what I will say, man. This is a double-edged sword. This game that they play, it's a double-edged sword. And the reason why is because you will also hear the same fans be like, man, it was a Pinto, or the Mario Pinto fight in last week, right? Dude stiffs Austin Lane with that right hook, that little check hook, and then he doesn't hit him, but he kind of falls in like he's going to hit him with that follow-up shot, and people are like, oh, man, he killed it. He had the highlight. He should have just walked off. It would have been so much cooler. It's way less cool that he went, and it's just like, you can't win, man. You can't win. You can't beat him. You can't join him. You can't do any of that. You just got to fight your fight. And I think if Jalen Turner wants to be anything more than just a fun fighter, you do got to take some of this into account, man. You know, dial in, be razor focused, and you got to have definitive outcomes in your matchups, especially against the top guys. So that's why I think it's cool he gets a bounce back against Bahamondes. Not an easy fight at all, though, folks. So that is your mailbag. That's UFC 313 in a nutshell. AJ, last thing that I want to cover before we get out of here, because I know it's time to bounce, is just talking more about the narratives. I cannot stress enough how literally that is the job that it is that we play, right? What's the hardest part? Okay, let me ask you this. What's the hardest part about picking a fight? Is it all of the number crunching and watching the tape? Or is it I'm being told this one thing all week long for months even maybe, and I have to form my own opinion? What do you think?
Absolutely the latter, Derick, especially when you're going in, you're doing your fight research, you see everything you want to see, you expect this fight to go out the way, and then you look, you're like, damn, I'm the opposition. Everybody else is thinking the exact opposite of what I'm thinking. Yeah, fighting through that narrative is one of the hardest parts about what we do, and especially, folks, don't fall for it out there, because UFC and ESPN is really good about creating that narrative.
They call them sharps for a reason, folks, and we're glad to be of service, you know what I'm saying? All right, folks, that's it. AJ, that's the program, yeah?
Yes, sir.